Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel, and this is your daily news roundup for today, Monday, April the 17th. Today's world news is as follows. Kremlin critic Vladimir Kara-Murza was given 25 years in prison for condemning the war in Ukraine. There were secrets of a little-known empire that threatened China and led to the creation of a Great Wall, revealed by ancient DNA that was unearthed very recently. There is intense fighting continuing for a third day in Sudan as the death toll nears 100. This is in lieu of a conflict between two military general rivals, who are vying for control over the Sudan. Then we have Elon Musk setting low expectations before the first ever SpaceX launch of Starship, the most powerful rocket ever built. Once again, we are talking of rival generals battling for control in the Sudan. And there is a guide to the fighting, though that will not be our focus for today. The police have then raided the home of the Japanese Prime Minister attack suspect as Prime Minister Kishida vows the G7 summit meeting will be secure. Then we have a US-sanctioned Chinese defense minister meeting Putin in Moscow, which leads to a halt, or rather, a hailing of military ties. Once again, the fighting between Sudanese military rivals enters the second day, with dozens of people dead so far. This was the original development of the fighting, with the death toll now nearing 100. Certain Ukrainians who fled Russia's war ended up in Siberia, and it is unclear if or when they'll ever return home. Then we have rebels holding New Zealand pilots hostage, claiming that they've killed at least 13 Indonesian soldiers. An Iranian commander was sentenced to 13 years for shooting down a Ukrainian passenger plane. A weapons stockpile and asymmetric warfare explains how Taiwan could thwart an invasion by China, with America's help. Now, this matter is very much rooted in history, in the sense that Taiwan has never really associated itself with China at all. They've preferred to exist as a separate entity. Then we have a former Indian lawmaker who was killed live on TV while in police custody. This news is still developing as we speak, so I will not be expanding on it at this point on. You have, as we move further west, in Mexico, a gunman killed 7 people at a public swimming pool, and as for when it comes back to Ukraine, Poland and Hungary have banned any and all Ukrainian grain amid a glut from their neighbor. However, the focus for our video today is going to be Mr. Vladimir Kara-Murza being given 25 years in prison for condemning the war in the Ukraine. Now, this 1.5-minute clip that you're seeing on the screen.
Слава Богу, двері відчинились, їх заклинило.
One little insight into the attacks or the heinous crimes that the Russian military has perpetrated on Ukraine.
Тут рама лежала прямо на кровати. На 7:30 спала, то похорони пиріжків зараз їли би. Мені вчора десь в день подзвонила сусідка з другого поверху і сказала, нас розбомбили, приїжджай. Я все кинула, але сюди дістатися вже стало темніти через річку, через ліс вночі. Повернулась додому, переночувала і зараз приїхала. Все в кімнаті розбомблено, все вщент. Тому зараз буду займатися, дякувати. Зараз буду плакати. Дякувати всім людям за допомогу, за своєчасну, за роботу. Зараз будуть все зашивати USB, щоб холода не було. Ну, поки людина жива, все можна зробити.
just one insight into why Russia is so condemned for their activities in Ukraine, their actions within the Ukraine. Now, on to the highlight news for the day. So, once again, this is regarding Vladimir Kara-Murza's arrest in Russia for being critical of Premier Putin. So, Vladimir Kara-Murza, a prominent Russian human rights advocate and Kremlin critic, has been sentenced to 25 years in prison after publicly condemning Moscow's war in Ukraine, with Russian state news agency TASS reporting on Monday. Now, Kara-Murza was initially detained a year ago, just hours after an interview where he criticized Russian President Vladimir Putin's regime of murderers. He was initially on trial for criminal offenses including treason, rumors about the Russian army, and facilitating activities of an undesirable organization. Russia's criminalization of the criticism of the military following the full-scale invasion of Ukraine last year. The court stated that he would serve his sentence in a strict regime correctional colony. Kara-Murza, however, is appealing the sentence, and his lawyer, according to his lawyer Vadim Prokhorov, on Monday. The detention of this activist has been decried by international human rights organizations and has prompted sanctions by the Biden administration last month. Now, the sentencing on Monday does draw further attention on Putin's crackdown against the freedom of expression, which has intensified since his invasion in Ukraine in last February. Kara-Murza, though, has for very long been critical of Putin and has gone on to survive 2 poisonings on 2 different occasions. In 2022, March specifically, he spoke before the Arizona House of Representatives against the war, and in an interview in April 2022, the political dissident condemned Putin's regime for targeting critics. He was arrested shortly afterwards for failing to obey the orders of law enforcement, according to his wife. The sentencing will likely draw further international condemnation of Putin. Last week, though, Hugh Williamson, the Europe and Central Asia director at the Human Rights Watch, said in a statement that the dissident was facing prison time for no more than raising his voice and elevating the voices of others in Russia who disagree with the Kremlin, its war in Ukraine, and the escalating repression within Russia. The British government then criticized what it called a politically motivated sentencing. Vladimir Kara-Murza bravely denounced Russia's invasion of Ukraine for what it was, a blatant violation of international law and the UN Charter. Russia's lack of commitment to protecting fundamental human rights, including freedom of expression, is alarming, according to Foreign Secretary James Cleverly on Monday. This charge of treason in Russia was brought in 2012 to include consultations or any other assistance to a foreign state or international or foreign organization. It was used against Kara-Murza over his condemnation of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In March, the United States imposed sanctions on a number of Russian individuals connected to what the Treasury Department called Kara-Murza's arbitrary detention and called for his immediate and unconditional release. In the final hearing trial last week, Kara-Murza stated that he was proud of his political views. And I quote "I'm in jail for my political views, for speaking out against the war in Ukraine, for many years of struggle against Putin's dictatorship, for facilitating the adoption of personal international sanctions under the Magnitsky Act against human rights violators. Not only do I not repent of any of this, I am proud of it." The original Magnitsky Act, signed into law in December 2012, blocks entry into the U.S. and freezes the assets of certain Russian government officials and businessmen accused of human rights violations. The law was subsequently expanded to provide global scope to the Russia-focused legislation. Kara-Murza stated that he blamed himself for not being able to convince enough of his compatriots and politicians of democratic countries of the danger that the current regime in the Kremlin poses for Russia and the world. He even expressed that he hoped that the day will come when the darkness over our country will dissipate. Even today, in the darkness surrounding us, even sitting in this cage, I love my country and believe in our people. He added, "I believe that we can walk this path." Well, ladies and gentlemen, that does it for our daily news roundup. I hope that this has given you a bit more insight into world affairs at large. Now, if you liked the video, if you enjoyed it, please drop a like down below. Please subscribe to the channel, share the video among your friends, your family. Do whatever you can to provide more exposure to this video, because this really helps the channel and it helps me as well. So doing this will further motivate me to bring you more and more content over an increasing basis. Now, once again, I do reiterate that as more details come in, as more news racks up over this week, there will be more videos coming. So with that, I bid you adieu, and I will see you in the next video.